Welcome to Lair of the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, a review of the new Alcatrazz album, Born Innocent. This is the fourth Alcatrazz studio album, and it's the first album that they've released in 34 years. I have a special place in my heart for Alcatrazz for a few different reasons. One of them was the first time that I heard Yngwie Malmsteen. Yngwie Malmsteen is a legendary guitar player, kind of the inventor of neoclassical shred guitar. And Yngwie was on the first Alcatrazz album, No Parole from Rock and Roll. And he was also on a live album called Live Sentence, but he would quickly leave for his solo career. So Alcatrazz was the first time that I had heard Yngwie, and I love the No Parole for Rock and Roll album. After Yngwie left, Steve Vai would join the band for the God Bless video album. And Steve Vai, another guitar player that would go on to be legendary. So for me, this album, the band Alcatrazz is really special. Also, I'm a big fan of Graham Bonnet. Graham Bonnet, in my opinion, is one of the greatest hard rock vocalists out there. He would certainly probably land in my top 10 of great hard rock vocalists. And to me, almost everything that Graham gets involved with, he elevates it to another level. And he's on some of my favorite hard rock albums. He was on Rainbow's Down to Earth album. He was on Michael Schenker's Assault Attack album. He did an album with Impellitteri. He's put out his own solo albums, which are great. Amazingly, Graham is 72 years old, and he still sounds absolutely incredible. He has a totally unique voice where just super strong belting and a really high register, just really unique and really stands out. So I was really excited when I found out that Alcatrazz was putting out a new album. The album also features original members Gary Shea on bass and Jimmy Waldo on keyboards, Graham, of course, on vocals, and they added Mark Benquicchia on drums and Joe Stump on guitar. Joe Stump is an interesting choice because, like I mentioned, Alcatrazz's first and probably their most popular album, No Parole for Rock and Roll, featured Yngwie Malmsteen. And Joe Stump is very influenced by Yngwie Malmsteen. Joe Stump is a Boston guitar player, classical influence, shredder, guy that put out a lot of instrumental albums. He's had a couple bands that he's been in. Trash Broadway is one that came to, but none of them that really achieved any kind of really big, huge success. So to see him on this album is really interesting because he sounds a lot like Yngwie Malmsteen. He's very influenced by Yngwie Malmsteen. And if you're a fan of that and you're missing that sound, that old classic early 80s, mid 80s, neoclassical guitar shredding, you're going to love this record because he's all over this record. I will, to his credit, say there's plenty of arpeggios and fast guitar playing and neoclassical style run, very much in the style of Yngwie Malmsteen. But he also does vary it up enough where there are very Blackmore-like moments where he's more bluesy, where he's more melodic, but there is a ton of shred guitar on here. I think he goes about it, which I think is cool. He's just, I don't think he cares about the Yngwie Malmsteen comparison. He just wears that influence on his sleeve, which is really cool and automatically makes the album really feel like that classic No Parole for Rock and Roll album. So getting into the record, 13 songs, 57 minutes long. That I have a complaint with. The album is too long. There's too many songs. There's too many songs also in the same sort of tempo, the same sort of style. If this album was dropped down to 40 minutes, give or take 9, 10 songs, it would have been much better for me. When I was listening to it, I always know when I took my morning walk and I had my headphones on, and when I'm listening to a record and all of a sudden I find that my mind has drifted somewhere else and I'm thinking of something else. I know that the music hasn't held me in. And that's what happens a little bit in sort of the middle part of this record for me. But there's still a lot of great stuff on here. It starts off with the title track, Born Innocent, which is great, classic, kind of chugging, fast, very 80s style. Again, if you're a fan of 80s hard rock metal like this, you're going to love this. Born Innocent, great catchy chorus. Graham sounds great on the whole record. Polar Bear, one of my favorites on it. It's got a classic Graham Bonnet chorus where he's just soaring up there with "We love you, Polar Bear." He's just belting it out like an absolute mammoth, only the way Graham Bonnet can. There's guys that sing in a high register, of course there are in heavy metal, but man, Graham just has a heft and thickness to his voice in that upper range that I don't know if there's anybody else that really has that much belting power behind their voice like Graham does. And Polar Bear is just great. The chorus in that is fantastic. Finn McCool is a fun one. It's got sort of an Irish feel to it. So great fun, great chorus. We Still Remember is another good one. It's got fun lyrics. That's another thing. I always liked Graham's lyrics. He doesn't dwell too much in typical like stereotype type hard rock heavy metal lyrics. He always has kind of fun lyrics, but they're engaging, and he takes strange topics, but he makes them engaging and interesting, like Finn McCool or Polar Bear, talking about a hunter in the Antarctic or whatever, and Finn McCool, the Irish theme. And We Still Remember has sort of this funny looking back on the way things used to be, and he even makes some sort of line like the fashion we used to wear, we should get our money back. So Graham's lyrics are just great. They're funny at times. They make you think. They draw you in. London 666, 1666 is a great one, another upbeat one. Body Beautiful, that's another one where, again, kind of interesting lyrics from Graham talking about people and tattoos and body art. But unfortunately, there's too much in the middle of the record that is really just the same tempo, the same. It could have done with less songs. It could have certainly done with a maybe like a bluesy ballad, possibly. That would have been really cool. Or maybe an instrumental. Also, the album, it's produced very well. You can hear everything. The guitars sound great. It's a little fatiguing on the ears. You'll hear me reference this, the loudness wars and dynamic range. This is where the dynamic range is sacrificed to make the album sound louder, and it's a little bit too, not too overbearing, but it's a little bit too much for me. I wish there was a little bit more dynamic range in the recording. It's a little fatiguing on the ears when you're listening to it straight through, but overall it sounds great. Everything's in check. The guitars, you can hear the bass, the keyboards are there. Maybe the keyboards could have been a little bit more involved on the record, but overall, the mix is great. But the highlight of this record for me are the last two songs. Worth Lane, W-A-R-T-H Lane, is an absolutely incredible song, and Graham sounds amazing on this. I mean, just absolutely amazing. Not only just with his range, but the emotion in this. It's a killer song. I highly encourage you to check out the whole album, but this song in particular, an amazing performance by Graham, and it's highly emotional. The lyrics about like the police coming to his house late one night to talk to his parents about a friend of his that committed suicide and hung himself from a tree. I mean, intense, heavy lyrics. And Graham, I'm getting a shiver up my spine thinking about it. Graham delivers this like nobody else really could. So much emotion, so much power behind his voice, just fantastic. And the last song on the record, For Tony, it's a very strange left turn, different type of song, but I love it. It's all keyboards, but the keyboard, I'm assuming that they're keyboard sounds. They sound like brass instruments. It sounds like a brass band almost behind them, but it's just sort of ballad song dedicated to, I guess, I don't know if it's a lover in his life. I don't know, a romantic song. And there's no drums, there's no guitar. It's just these sort of brass band and keyboard sounds. And it sounds like, whoa, what are you, that sounds really crazy, but it totally works. And Graham just sounds great on it. And I wished there was more of that on this record. I wish they had dropped a couple songs, bumped these songs up, maybe had Worth Lane be the last song on the record. That would have been such a climactic way to take this record out. It would have also helped with the flow of the record. Maybe a bluesy ballad or maybe an instrumental would have helped with the flow a little bit. But overall, a great return to form. If you're looking for something that really harkens back to early 80s without sounding like they're just totally trying to copy that sound, you're gonna like this record. It's a great return to form. I'm hoping that they tour with this. Joe Stump delivers in a really old classic 80s style guitar, and I applaud him for that, for not trying to make it sound modern style guitar. This is throwback guitar at its best. So if you miss the days of shred guitar, check this out. You're gonna love it. So overall, I would probably give the album, I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10, because Worth Lane for Tony, incredible songs. The first 4 or 5 songs on it, really good. A little bit long, could have cut a few things out, but overall, Graham sounds amazing. The band is cooking. I love the throwback feel. I love the shredding guitar. Warms my heart, brings me back to discovering Alcatrazz and Yngwie Malmsteen in my early days in heavy metal and hard rock. So check it out, Alcatrazz, Born Innocent. Let me know what you think in the comments of this record. Make sure you hit subscribe and like. And until we see you again, make sure to stay heavy, stay metal.